Thanks for coming today.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm super excited. We're doing, as you know, Carol and I have been doing this FSM podcast where we go live and we've been answering questions and telling stories. And the feedback has been good, but it's been, okay, this is great, but can you get some PTs and some strength coaches and some sports people to come on? So you're like top of my list. So there's going to be like a side hustle that I'm doing. As you know, the tagline for FSM Sports is changing the game. So this is going to be the Game Changers podcast. So welcome.
Yep. Thank you. I hope to be able to deliver this, whatever it is that you're expecting of people in sports and whatever.
Well, you know what? This is like, I don't know. I hate doing like these scripted podcasts. I hate listening to them. Like, I like it when it's just kind of off the cuff and organic. So I do have some stuff I do want to like pick your brain at a little bit, but a lot of it, I just want it to evolve kind of naturally. So you have been in PT, strength and conditioning for a long time.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Without dating you.
Yeah. A lot of, so I graduated PT school in 99. But I think a lot of people don't even know I'm a PT. And then a lot of other people don't even, they don't have awareness, because I would say for the most of my hours of the last 20 plus years would probably fit into what someone else calls strength and conditioning. So to me, it's all the same. The taglines and the brand names, etc. But to me, it's all the same. And I just happen to have a wider periphery of skill. So when someone has raging back pain, I don't have a different view on how to create a solution. So I don't know if that makes me a PT or a strength coach, but I'm licensed, so I can do it. I can do what I do.
The thing that you're selling yourself short here, because someone that's just been in the weeds with all of this, with an injury that my daughter had, there is a big rainbow of skills that is required for any person, not even an athlete's recovery. And you can deal with everything from that acute post-operative stage all the way through to getting that person game ready. So you are very unique in the fact that you've got skills from A through Z. So whereas I think most athletes,
that's not unfair. Yeah.
No, honestly, because most athletes have like this entourage, right? We have the people that are working in the acute phase, we have the people kind of in the middle of it, and then we're shuffling them off to the strength coaches at the end. But you've got it made because you can see the progress, you can see all the little glitches firsthand yourself instead of somebody else's feedback.
I think, and of course, it is important for me to deflect here and be humble. But so the reality is that no, there's not a ton of people that have what I call that peripheral vision, that what you just described, the rainbow. I'm not the only one. There are definitely other people that are like-minded. But I think what's important to make sure is that it's no different than like a general contractor for the house. That general contractor might have used to be a plumber, or maybe he was really good at plumber, but he wasn't a plumber and he did these other things. So at the end of the day, I don't know what the term is, but let's say if we are going to talk a little bit about your daughter, since you already mentioned it, would I be the call it like human performance manager, or I don't know what the word is, but because it doesn't exist, but it is in like a general contractor, where they're responsible for everything, and they may not actually be carrying out every single task, and there are some like that may not have anything to, I would have no right to or legal ground or expertise, but we all can have the ability to audit somebody else. Meaning, for instance, the most exclusive of all of the periphery would be orthopedic surgery. Now that being said, I think you could probably do a meniscectomy from YouTube and learn how to do it. It's not a terribly complicated thing, as terribly inappropriate as that might be. That being said, I don't I don't do anything. I don't think a PT, a chiro, anybody that's in physical medicine, I'm not sure the evaluation should be any different. Meaning, if I'm going to evaluate someone, I should have the exact same opinion as a surgeon on if surgery is warranted. That doesn't mean if she gets surgery. Surgery is warranted. I don't know why that would be. Like, what information or what expertise from physical exam is different. And then I know if the surgery got effed up. Like, I should be able to tell that. And even if I can't tell that right away, now the longer the latency of when we're going to say, all right, man, this went sideways. There could have been a lot of things that happened in between. But I use that as an example because it is the most exclusive piece where I will never be doing any orthopedic surgery. But that being said, there's no reason why somebody needs to be an orthopedic surgeon to know if their work is good. And then I take that back to the general contractor. Like, you know that you're not happy with where he put that wall. You don't know how to do it. And he may have thought it was better, or he might think, well, the general contractor is not going to tell you, well, excuse me, I've been a general contractor for 27 years. I'm pretty sure the wall is good here. But that's how a lot of specialists work. And then in addition, all of the other things that come along with any type of human development, it can't just be what you want it to be, meaning nutrition and sleep and all these other things. Or when it comes simply to rehab, fitness and training, it's all one thing. Like, you don't have an option, except I think that's probably somewhere down the rabbit hole of why healthcare and health in our country is not ideal because of this truly allopathic, siloed view of all these different things that you're terming under the rainbow. So I'm just good at seeing. So like I'm in my screen right now, so I can see here. Like I can see that most people, because like their altruism is so strong. It's not their ego, it's their altruism. I'm trying to be nice. That you want it to be what you do, whereas. Here, look, right before we came on, I didn't erase anything. So here's doesn't matter who, but like, let's see if you can see. So she had like some kind of flank pain that was gone. And as she was saying, like, it would hurt when we breathe. It would hurt when I got bloated. It was a young lady. And I'm like, okay, so you see, I circled that right here and I said, like, you said that for a reason. Okay. You didn't say bloated for no reason. Okay. So tell me more about, and then she in her mind, like a UTI had nothing to do with any of this. But I'm like, no, this could have everything to do with it, because if we go through our physical exam and we don't find anything and I can't help you, that doesn't mean you can't be helped. That's usually how it works like a doctor will be like, oh, let's just keep an eye on it. Like, no, like there's real things. I don't know what to do about a UTI. But I do know that could be part of her solution. So rather than say I'm this or that, I could use a couple examples of how we try to deal with this, because like I'm an advocate. Like and I say, look, I'm not trying to scare you, but like we have to understand that sometimes it's never what we want it to be, because then I don't get a chance to help. But that's the problem. People like. Like, how do you make any money? I'm like, no, we're okay on that. Don't worry. Because or to do 3, if I see somebody and I think they need surgery, most commercial physical therapists would see them 3 times a week for 4 weeks and then send them back to the doctor. I'm probably going to make more in one session than they're going to make in a month. So I'm not worried about that part. But it's the right thing for them, because just because you're going to go to the doctor, you might still do a month of training or rehab anyway. But to not bring them in and then to not hit that button on the, again, in my world, we don't deal with a lot of foolishness, but sometimes it takes weeks or months to get an MRI and blah, blah, blah. So to work together, but now you're only going to go to the surgeon that I say to go to, so that we can minimize hijinks and I'm in charge. No, I want to drive. Well, I'm going to drive. No, I'm going to drive. So when you have one person that's managing that process and you pick the right people to populate your rainbow, then it works. Then it can be really cool.
Well, okay, so many things to unpack with that statement. So a couple different ways I want to go about this. what you're talking about, having somebody manage a case, I think that's missing in healthcare. I mean,
Yeah,
with athletes, as you know, we get called in to work with somebody. There's like an entourage, right? There's like a steady stream of practitioners, usually some of the best in their field, coming in, doing what they're really good at, leaving, handing it off. And for the most part, I think we're really good at working with other modalities and other professions for the good of the patient. But you're right, there's a lot of ego that's involved, and there's always that guy that wants to be the guy that does everything. And I think the longer you're in the field, the longer you check your ego at the door. You can be really good at what you do, but you also have awareness that there's other people that are really good at what they do. And if people can be cohesive and work together in that, everybody's little boxes can cooperate and make a big giant grid, I think you're going to get a lot more
yeah.
of the outcome, right? Like, but who's gonna drive the bus
Well,
is
yeah, it's a very idealistic view and plan, and I think that's the best place to start. It just doesn't always work that way, and sometimes then less practitioners start to get their hands into other things so that they don't bring too many cooks in the kitchen. But when it's clear as to who the head chef is, the best head chef sometimes doesn't do anything in a busy evening at the restaurant. He or she is just looking around and there to help or run interference, etc. So it's actually like a CEO. There's certain things that they are going to have the final say, but you have a COO and you have a CFO and you have a CTO and all these different things. So I think there's an assumption that this happens in pro sport, and that would be ludicrous. To think that, number one, that pro sport at the team level, the employees of the team are populated with the best in the profession. That's absurd. That's absolutely ridiculous. But additionally, to think that this cohesiveness and this global view of just everything that these staffs exist for financial purposes. They're the we, or when I've been at that, when I have been one of those people, we're the premium to the insurance policy, not the one that you pay to the insurance. We're the one, so you don't have to pay more. So that it's about making money. It's about preserving the player. It's always about the player. No, it's about the business, which obviously includes the health of the player. And I think the best situations are the ones where people aren't like stabbing people and twisting it. So the stabbing people is almost everywhere. Maybe they don't twist it. And this was not a pro sports setting, but I had a coach message me. It's an AHL player. So and he's asking me about performance enhancing drugs. And I said, before you even get into this, you realize like the AHL has the same rules of the NHL. Like you need to run as far away from this question as possible, because if he actually does it on his own and you're affiliated with this athlete, then you're going to be pegged. So I said, and it was an injury. It was a surgery that is like typical for like 8-year-old girls. As ridiculous that he even had this surgery. So it wasn't surprising that the outcome wasn't going well. I said, well, do you ever talk to the physical therapist? And he's like, yeah, like, I'm like, okay, well, oh no, he goes, yeah, he's really good. I'm like, oh, so you mean you just don't hate each other? And he's like, I said, well, if he's really good, why is he 8 months and still on crutches when he's supposed to be playing at 2 months? He's like, yeah, you're right. I'm like, so just I think a lot of times when people see these expectations, it's not, you can get along with people and you can suck at your job. One person can be really good and you really like the other person, and you just don't share that. Just because they're not good at what they do doesn't mean they're a bad person. So it's a lot easier to create amicable situations, especially when it helps you keep your job. Because if you don't say anything, you probably have a better chance of keeping your job. So this is not, it's not a terribly common thing in pro sport.
What you've been working with pro sports like since graduation, like since you were born? Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a silver spoon in my mouth when it comes to getting these high profile jobs. Yes.
But you see normal people, like
Yeah. Yeah.
normal in quotes.
So this one was not normal, and that one was normal. How about that?
Right. Um, and you now are in Florida, right? Full time? I mean,
I
you're
mean,
never anywhere full time, but
yeah, back and forth. I still have offices in New York, and I'm in my office now in Florida.
okay. So between that, you also are having you have your training equals rehab. So that's your teaching sort
Yeah,
of core
kind of
stuff.
like the brand. Yeah.
So talk to us about that, because your ACL in action is phenomenal. But who's this geared towards? PTs, strength coaches?
ACL in action or all
No,
of them?
your training equals rehab. Let's start there.
Oh, I mean, it's probably easier to say who it's not geared for. It's probably not the end user. It's not for general population. It's always been a train the trainer type of product. It's a B2B product. We're actually starting something new this month that will be geared more towards the end user. And I've always struggled at being able to deliver service to the end user through the internet. And just because other people do it, I don't think down upon it. I don't think it's bad. I had somebody tell me once, well, if you don't do it, somebody's going to do it. So, and I still couldn't figure it out. But because if you can't evaluate and or zigzag when necessary, I felt like the end user would not be, they would be upset because it's not who they thought I was, and they actually wouldn't be wrong, but it would be you get what you pay for kind of thing. So it's not so much for the end user, but it's more for anyone that works with other people. I mean, obviously, it's significantly skewed to the orthopedic and sports genres, but to actually see a little bit of it, any profession, anyone in health and wellness, I don't think they would value every hour of every product, but there's certainly this message of how do you work together. So it all started. The mandate was in 2009 was from Equinox, she was in charge. Geraldine Coopersmith was in charge of their their highest level of training. At that time, it was called Tier 4. Now it's called Tier X, and it was bridge the gap between personal training and physical therapy. And maybe some people know, I absolutely despise the term bridge the gap, but that was 2009. There is no gap. That's the thing. We're not bridging anything. And there's a lot of people that have usurped that term who I don't really enjoy listening to. So, I mean, I bridge the gap before you, so keep your mouth shut. Because they're talking about methods and techniques that I don't want to be affiliated with. So, but yeah, so that's how it started. Where how do you, like, if you didn't have a physical therapist, what could you do? Just to create, because people at Equinox, their business model would be never to refer out because they want to keep all the financial component in. So we tried to answer that. And then additionally, you could then, if you did have a great therapist to work with, you had this division of labor where you do this, but because everybody was communicating with the same methodology and the same global, but also granular methods. So that's all so training equals rehab is evolved into, training equals rehab equals nutrition equals sleep equals psychology equals load management. And those are the 6, buckets, if you will. There's one slide where the first click on the bottom is just 6 empty pails. And then they get labeled with each of those things, and they're meant to be on the bottom so you can reach your hand in and pull something out. But like you would only use, like, the evolution of T equals R was that there would be evaluation models. And the only evaluation model that you would use would be one that could be positively impacted by any one of those 6. So for instance, if someone has a knee surgery, well, you need medical, you need surgery, you need physical therapy. You need to train because they have another leg and 2 arms and a trunk. And quite frankly, ACL rehab is training, just at a very probably a much slower pace. The concepts aren't different. that's what I mean. Like in terms of T equals R was, your body is not, the body doesn't adapt differently just because you went to Cairo school versus PT school. Like it doesn't work different. Like it's the same for everybody. The concepts of adaptation are the same. So, and then of course, if you sleep, that's going to have impact for everything. Psychology is important for everything. When you have surgery and it's doom and gloom, you must eat for a number of different reasons. And then managing how much and pushing and pulling on how much and when to do what is part of load management. So we like to look at the evaluation models that complement everyone, in your term, under the rainbow. That's really what T equals R is about. And then the different products, digital products, are all just illustrations of how that model works.
Okay, you always give me so much to like chirp back at when you say things. So again, I'm going to unpack your statement. So a lot of people who are really busy in what they do just kind of stay in their lane and they stay busy, and you don't need to teach. You are busy enough, like I said, between flying around, seeing athletes, seeing normal people. Why teach?
Well, when it comes to, I mean, first off, I like doing something different. Like, I don't know that I could ever go back to, not that I ever really did this very often, where you have the same day every day. Like, I don't have the same day every time. So if I have different opportunities in which I can support my family, I mean, that's part of it. Think about it, like, when you teach, or even like do people that watch this, there's people watching this that you and I don't know. We'll never know. We don't know who they are. We'll never see them. But if they're moved by this, they're going to help other people. And we had something to do with that. That's a very obviously spiritual, you could get into that, but that's cool. In the very beginning, I didn't even want to have a website. Now, this is way back when, because I didn't think I would be able to constantly, deliver something that people really wanted to see. Yeah, I'm glad I was wrong. But I mean, as far as the seminars live, I stopped doing that a little while ago, and it's not like I'm against doing it. It's just not, it wasn't fun anymore, where I think just based on what the market really wanted, I am not good at delivering. It's like, dude, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Like, no, it doesn't work like that. Like, it doesn't, some things can work like that, but that's not what I do. Like, it's not what my head is. So,
right.
I'd rather teach the structure and the shape, and how do you deliver things that you don't know about.
Right.
That's, so unless you're 100% perfect on every time out, which you're not. So that
right.
Maybe some reasons that you're not succeeding is because the person doesn't have an ideal nutrition plan. Well, right. I'm not allowed to do nutrition. I said, I know. That's why you're supposed to work with somebody else that cares about what the same things you care about. So I don't think there's a lot of courses out there. There's not a lot of people that really want to pay and travel for that. So, but I still just do the random stuff on social media, which then drives the bigger stuff that we have on T equals R plus, the streaming platform.
Right. So I want to talk a little bit about FSM. This is going to be it's going to be on our FSM stuff. You and I met years ago working with an athlete in common, and that's how I first met you in person. We were doing I was there to do FSM, and that was right around the time where I was launching like the FSM sports course, because kind of similarly to you, I mean, I think if you're about to teach something, you have to have like this very innate organic passion to make that part of the industry a little bit better. Help people, help other people, right? Dr. McMakin's tagline is FSM, changing medicine, one practitioner at a time. There's this ripple effect, right? So I remember, I think it was 2012 or 13, Carol had come to Calgary to do an FSM course. And I had kind of pulled all these people together. I was living in Calgary at the time. The course was like 99.9% PTs, strength coaches, and sports chiropractors. And, she kind of went on, I think it was like day 3, doing some of the stuff on like visceral stuff, reproductive problems. And I'm looking around the room and everybody's like checking Facebook. They're doing like clinical notes. Everybody had totally like checked out. And I was like, wow, this is really interesting. Kind of going back to how you have like, your UTI and bloating thing. Some practitioners would just be like, scrap that part of the history aside because you can't write a prescription for a UTI. And that's how I was talking to these people. I did an audit after. I'm like, why were you not interested in visceral adhesions or someone that had endometriosis? Do you not think that could contribute to back pain? Because this was a chiropractor I was talking to. He's like, yeah, but what's the end game? I can't treat that stuff. And I'm like, but you could. So I wrote the sports course to kind of trim the fat on all that stuff and kind of sprinkle it in at the end. So I didn't have to force feed people the visceral stuff, but give them what they needed. They, like you said, they want it. It's not like a kinesio taping course, right? Where after you spend 2 days learning how to tape, you could tape anything or anybody on that flight home from that course. FSM is not like that. It's there to give you tools to develop, and I hate the term critical thinking, but that's what it is. Like, what else could be involved? What else could be contributing or hindering or holding that person back? And then who in your spectrum could you refer to help that patient? So I fell in love with FSM because it forced me to look more globally, to think outside the box to help patients. And if you're doing that, does it really matter if I can't? It doesn't matter to me if I can't fix somebody's vestibular problem. I know somebody that could, and if I can refer to that person, I still look like a rock star because I identified it or help identify it.
That part is way more important and hopefully resonant to everyone listening, that when you refer to somebody else, not only is it noble because you took a step back, it's noble because you're also not making money. And even if you get a kickback on it, whatever, like I always say, like, if I'm going to refer you out, it has to be right because I'm leaving so much on the table.
For sure.
But and I insist that if I refer somebody to somebody else and they create an amazing solution, even if it was one that I didn't even know was possible, much less usually it's just because I don't know how to access it, or I can't write the prescription, or I can't order the MRI. Like in the Marine Corps, we could do all those things. They're going to remember that you did it. They're not going to remember that somebody else executed the plan. They're going to remember that you made them do it. And if there is a concern about business, when you do that a whole lot, it goes in a big circle. Like it's so short-sighted to look at that. Now, when it comes to using FSM, without a doubt, I could reach right over there and take a look at my little sheet. I have to be, now everybody is a little bit different. And because you use chiro, it is different than PT because a chiropractor, like everybody can say whatever. The fact is that the entry-level training and licensure of a chiropractor means that you can treat all 10 systems of the body. That's what it is. Whether it's actually successful or not is another story. So to take something that there basically is infinite scope to what a chiropractor can or cannot do. As a physical therapist, I do not have that scope. So I certainly cannot suggest that I am putting these stickers on and I'm going to hit these buttons and I'm going to choose endometriosis. That would be blatantly egregious outside the scope of my practice. However, if I'm using other codes that have this collateral value and I'm doing it within the scope of treating muscle, bone, and nerve, and all of a sudden their endometriosis happens to improve, which I don't really know enough about that medical scope to even say if that's possible, then it's a different story. So we have seen that, meaning because I need to know about your endometriosis, I need to know about your sinuses. I'm like, oh, sinuses, yeah, I'm getting surgery next week. I'm like, all right, listen, I'm not treating your sinuses, but I want to know if this gets better in a couple of days. And I'll never tell you not to have the procedure because obviously there's a collateral benefit to certain FSM protocols to other things because you're not necessarily treating the allopathic name of whatever ails them, even if there is one. You're treating structures, and structures have all sorts of directions and links and connections, etc. So it's a very powerful thing. I do think it's important. Not everybody has, like, a chiropractor has a much larger scope of practice than a physiotherapist, as far as I know. Like, I don't know, Canada, America is, very limited in that type of scope.
Right. Okay. One of the other things we try to drive home, or I try to, at least when I teach my portion of the FSM sports course, is FSM is an adjunct. I really run for the hills when I hear of anybody talking about any modality or any type of clinical training as the one all be all, just like the practitioners that think that they can treat everything. I think FSM has its place, just like there's a place for prescription drugs and surgery and all these other things. In the sports course, I'd broken it down to 3 components, right? We have rehab, we have recovery, and we have performance enhancement. Not that one has to follow the other. They all sometimes blend together and you're dealing with all 3 at the same time. But so if we talk about the rehabilitation component for a second, what are your other favorite adjuncts for somebody who's in like a fresh rehabilitative state, whether it's a supplement or other things?
In addition to FSM.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So there's the discovery call, which we probably had several months ago. So if there's an orthopedic surgery, the 3 global things that we would look at, which would probably be considered adjunct, and again, I don't, because any one of them might actually have a bigger effect, and you'll never really know if you do them all, and it's not important to know, but
right.
And like other people would think they're adjunct. Is fitness, the humoral and hormonal effects of intelligent fitness helps things heal faster. When you talk about healing, for instance, the panacea of all things is human growth hormone. Well, that's against the rules. So, however, that's completely ludicrous to think that human growth hormone only comes out of a needle. Human growth hormone can be generated and increased endogenously, safely and ethically. So if I gave you the training protocols that have been shown to increase human growth hormone, maybe now we understand why so many professional athletes would do that. So training is crucial. Not so much to get stronger or get bigger muscles, but to create an environment that makes the body less costly to do anything, including recover from an orthopedic surgery. That's number 1. Number 2 is sleep, where I think sometimes we think, okay, if I lift this heavy thing up and put it down, something really good happens immediately. No, it takes a long time, and a lot of those things that happen are when I'm asleep. So if there's factors involved with how you sleep, it's not necessarily going to, it'll make your good rehab and good training fall on deaf ears, particularly as it relates to human growth hormone, because it's like happy hour for human growth hormone. It's from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. for most people. So if you're not in deep sleep during 10 to 2, you've given away this opportunity. It's not impossible. It's not like you can't get deep sleep at other hours. But all that goes involved, and I'm leaving that part out, but all that gets involved in being in deep sleep for a good portion of those 4 hours for most people that are not shift workers. So that would be, a brilliant thing. Like if I told you that you can get human growth hormone from, just being asleep between these hours, and you still don't do it, well, then you're not the person that's going to do everything they possibly can. Like everybody loves saying that I'll do whatever I have to do whatever I have to do. No, you won't. So you have training, you have sleep, and then nutrition, where not only is the micronutrients going to support building things that do other things like human growth hormone, but just your macronutrients. Like if you're trying to build muscle that was recently torn or compromised, well, you don't just get more muscle from working hard. You work hard, you mobilize a whole bunch of things, and then if you eat or inject other things, then they become the new muscle. You don't just get bigger arms from just lifting heavy weights. You have to lift heavy weights and eat. So to not think of those three things is maybe going back to the first thing. This is like what I do now. I'm getting better at some things, but I don't really need to get better because I'll just go call somebody and let them do it. You mentioned the first time we met, like where the player called you in, but then I called you in because I can't be two places at once. Right. So Doc did my, that individual is one of the best offensive linemen in the NFL. Not only did he not miss any quality care, I also got to learn more about FSM from somebody who's better at it than me. So this is how all these things become very, very circular.
Yeah.
But those would be the three adjuncts. But look, FSM is it's not so much to promote because I don't get paid anything on it. But it's when there's a some of the dramatic things that lots of practitioners are delivering and capable of delivering. FSM is a very special thing, so that should be a major, like anybody that I take over, they get one. So, we just talked about a situation where, how come Charlie's buying so many of these? Or I got a phone call like, Charlie, we can't ship this to the locker room. I'm like, I just need to make sure it gets in his locker. It's fine. It's coming from me. I look at it like, when I was coming up, it was a cool thing to have like Normatex and Game Readies on the plane. I'm like, I don't know why there's not like 24 FSMs on the plane home. So it's like such a high return for like I don't need financial cost, but just to do it, just hit run and go.
Right. And what FSM can be like anything, can be as complicated or as easy as you want it to be. And I was talking to a trainer who called me last week and had heard about it because a player was a hockey player that I'd worked with for a long time was saying like, we need these all in the locker room and how are we going to get them? And he was very, very closed-minded. Where's the peer-reviewed triple-blinded study that went back 10 years to show its efficacy? I'm like, I don't have that paper, but I have this guy and I have 20 other of his teammates that are saying that it helped him with recovery. So like I said, if kind of going back to what you said, it's not a magic wand, nothing ever is. But if I could load 3 programs on a custom care for a patient or for an athlete, the concussion protocol, just to get them to sleep at night, if you can get an athlete off of Ambien and just organically going to sleep, like you said, before 10, or so that he is in that deep sleep, that in itself is huge. Helping with stress management. I had a player that went to the Sochi Olympics, and I only worked with him, a few months leading up to those Olympics. And he had called me or he emailed or texted right after the games. He's like, what can I do? Like, this was amazing. I have this medal. I had the best performance of my career. Can I write you a testimonial? I'm like, sure, that would be great. Wrote me like 3 pages of stuff. And at first I'm like, I can't use any of it. But once I dissected it and broke it down, he talked all about how he was the first guy that adjusted to the time change so fast. Why? Because he could go to sleep without drugs organically. He felt that his immune system was stronger because of X, Y, and Z. His mood was better. He's dealing with the stress better than he ever had. So those in itself, like maybe we're not healing a bone 50% faster. Maybe sometimes we are. But those small little changes, getting somebody to sleep at night is, to me, one of the most important things why you would get a custom care.
Yeah, obviously that tracks back to one of those adjuncts. So because nothing ever lives in a silo. So like if I do a massage that helps you, or if I put acupuncture in your head someplace, I would not be doing that. But the thing is like, and this goes back to when I was first exposed to FSM, despite how I may say certain words, I'm not from Canada, but I do have the Canadian accent that is many people recognize. Is like, what is that? Where's that from? Like, there's no Canadian accent. It's just putting a question mark on the end of your sentence. So, you know, and then which led me because no, the first course I ever took, which I think you were there, but it was the main one. There was no sport course yet. This is many years ago. And look, people that are significant adopters of this, whether you're an early adopter or not, you have a different threshold to accept utility of something, and that threshold may be driven by a number of different things, including I don't really care how this thing works. It works. Well, we need to be very, very careful because I don't want anybody to think I suck. Okay, I don't want everybody to think I'm a charlatan. I think this works. So one of my mentors in the sports science community is a fellow named Aaron Coots, who's in Sydney, Australia, and he's like, Charlie, you're fine. Like you're a heuristic. You're allowed to be a heuristic. You just have to write down everything. You have to document everything. You're not so if you're going to say that this works, but you don't have that type of study that individual asked you for, you have to write it down. Which I do. It's just because I want to know, and I also want to honor what somebody has asked me to do. Now, moving forward, maybe it just works for different reasons. Okay, so that's I would say there's no such thing as a placebo. You just measured the wrong thing. I know. I understand. Like you're measuring what you want to measure, and it didn't do that. See, that's where we're missing. That's where we're missing, and I don't expect the commercial company to be driving this. But if this is really going to get to another level, then if we say like this athlete says his immune system was improved, well then I need some blood work to see it, and I don't think that's out of line. I don't think that that's wrong for someone to request that simply because their threshold of adoption is different. Now, at the end of the day, if you want them to spend $2, $3, $8 grand on something, and they're telling you, I will buy this if you give me this evidence, and you refuse to give them this evidence or be a part of the generation of said evidence, it's not a good look. I don't care, but he or she does. Now, here's the other thing, and when it comes to anything that is mechanical, or in this case, mechanotransduction, because this is electricity. If I touch you with my hand, which is mechanotransduction, you have some combination of dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. Now, again, we're not measuring those things. Other people have when it comes to manual therapy. So the crowd that says manual therapy doesn't do anything, they're completely ludicrous. They're just not aware of the research that does show this. Now, am I breaking adhesion? No. Am I putting something back into place? No. That's all laughable. But if the person can move their arm way better than they did before, something happened. So it's almost like this cheap, easy way out of explaining some kind of mechanical or mechanotransduction passive procedure, such as FSM. It is, and again, all you have to do is measure it. Is there an increase in dopamine? Is there, and that's not an easy thing to measure. I get it. Is there an increase in serotonin, and is there an increase in oxytocin? Because those are all relatively feel-good types of things. So now those feel-good hormonal neurotransmitter substances, their combination, can then have a very positive impact on the autonomic nervous system, which can then lead to this magical, somehow dramatic change in musculoskeletal function. That, again, you can measure that. You can actually use you could use the highest level of medical level ECG, and then by hand count out your heart rate variability and measure RMSSD, calculating it out, and actually see if FSM had this positive impact. And so that this is all void. So when somebody comes with some heat, like I need this, this, and this, okay, like that's okay. Like they're now if they're just being a jerk, because I think a lot of people do communicate from a position of why not to do something rather than why to do it.
Yes.
I would say if you don't have, as long as you're not spending the rent money, the thing with FSM is that it does not take you away from anything else that you would be doing. It's not like I'm putting a complex on you and your quad is bouncing. I can't run while you're doing that. Okay, I can't do. if I'm going to do any kind of just passive therapy for a total knee replacement, you better believe I'm putting this on them, and I expect the result to get better. And my threshold is like, I don't really care why. So I'm pretty sure that when somebody's walking 4 miles, after through day 3 of a meniscectomy, okay, something worked. And trust me, I'm not just being reckless where I want to carry a 270-pound person back to the house. So I'm comfortable saying that it works. Other people that probably have a higher threshold than me in terms of demanding scientific merit, they also say it works because we do it. Because they trust me, like when I'm part of the team, like, no, we got to do this. They're like, yeah, like, I don't know why. Like, it's not a good look to say, like, I don't know why these numbers are that. It's just not. Like, we need better than that, because what I say is the most logical explanation is that an alien came to Earth and gave us these numbers because they work, and it's like they, but we have no idea as to why, this number equals this effect on the body. So, as a non-representative of the company, I'm allowed to say it's not a good look, because if you really want to grow these answers for people that have a different standard of adopting new strategies, well, then just like give up. Be like, you're not going to use this now. That's okay.
Right.
Yeah,
that was my face. I think the first course that I took, I was the biggest skeptic of this device before being probably the biggest promoter of it, where I've done quite a bit of a 180. But we were working with a bunch of athletes. It was a bunch of NHL guys. One of the other practitioners had a custom care, somebody that I deeply respect. Dr. Mark Lindsay was like, oh, this thing is awesome. You have to see me, do a treatment with it. And at first that was a big change, because I was introduced to it as this athlete doesn't need manual therapy or anything else. He will just use FSM. And I'm like, this is stupid. Like nothing ever works, like you said, in a silo or a vacuum on its own. But when he was doing a treatment with it, and I had been doing manual therapy for some time, and I saw the tissue release and I saw range of motion increase so fast with his skilled hands. I'm like, okay, there's definitely something to it. So Googled who this is, Dr. McMakin, FSM, jumped on the first plane I could. I was in Texas, and she's going through the numbers and presenting the locks and cogs data. I'm like, this is great. It's helping with inflammation. We're seeing some ultrasounds of, collagen and elastin and pliability. I'm like, this is fantastic. And then she's going into the frequencies, and I'm like, so why is 40 on a inflammation? Like, where'd that come from? And she's like, we don't know. And then she just keeps talking. I'm like, no, wait, well, why is 396 hertz a nerve? How did that happen? Why is it not 397? Like, how did they figure that out? She's like, well, we don't know. The osteopaths in 1927 came, and I was just like, I wanted to leave because that wasn't good enough for my brain. And I've since gotten past it, but you're right. We need to kind of go back.
It's that's why it probably lives more it lives significantly, at least in my mind, in pro sport, even though I'm sure there's 80-90% still wouldn't even know what it was. Right. It's probably depending more on the background of the practitioner. If it, just like me, like I got exposed to it, and I don't know that I ever would have gotten exposed to it had I not lived in Toronto 2 months out of the year. I was more accepting the first time of understanding that, but it is a challenge, because you do have to explain it to people. You can't just do it and be like, this is. But I think the disarming of me being silly and saying an alien came to deliver it actually somehow diffuses the question, because the answer is I don't know. So I think it's important to say I don't know. People probably don't say that enough in general, but because like I also describe it as, look, there's no front end, meaning it's very hard to get in the door because there's no front end scientific merit here. But there actually is significant back end. Whether it's significant is for someone else to decide. There are studies that show XYZ happen when you tried to do XYZ. So that means it did we just don't know why the particular settings did that, but we do know it happens.
Right.
I was putting on, I had a PRP on my hip, and in the office, I'm putting on the pads. And the PA actually knew, not FSM, but like something about microcurrent. And I'm like, well, yeah, it is microcurrent, but it may not be exactly, what they're describing. So the reality is that if something really is happening, then the next step is to study, okay, is it a sham? Meaning if 396 works, well, maybe 397 works and 391 works, and somebody just has to do it. I don't care, and I can say that. And if it mattered, then I would be out of business. Like, people wouldn't come to work with me. Obviously, it doesn't matter for my goals, but for somebody else, if this is really going to have a broad impact, these are questions that probably should at least be discussed in a safe way like this, but also answered. Because it's a machine, like it can be cracked, like it can be, somebody can open it up and understand what's happening. But until that happens, the fellow that you're referencing is not going to get what he wants, and then he'll get mad, because then his players will go find people that work privately that will do it, and then get more mad and be a jerk. So it's the way it goes.
Oh, right. All right. Aside from FSM, where do you go for continuing education? Who are some of your mentors? Who are some of what do you like learning about right now?
So I have to be careful so not to, because I don't like talking about like commercial models, and if I don't want to talk about them. But I am most excited to grow my breadth of osteopathy for musculoskeletal issues. Okay. So that way I have to say the prick that is the main name behind this model. Because in osteopathy, it's actually it's exactly how I think, where lots of things matters. Osteopathy is probably true osteopathy, which we don't really have in America, but obviously is very normal in Canada and the UK, is also like movement of bones, not just doing something at the spinal level, can impact all 10 systems of the body. Well, that's a little bit more believable than cracking T7 to affect your liver. I mean, because a lot of those techniques are so isolated, and it allows to communicate to the patient better, because I don't think like that at all. I don't think I could have my thumbs here and you do whatever testing, and my thumbs are completely on the navicular. I don't think of it as I think my hands are here. Like that's, I don't think in those terms. But I do know that in osteopathic medicine and approach is very anatomy book driven. So it allows for communication to be very strong. And look, some of these fascial components is about as powerful as a method next to manual therapy. So when I see people in a one and done, I will try to do as much exercise first, so then I can then say, just do therapy here. I don't even care what therapy you do, as long as it makes these exercises easier to get into and or improve your KPI or your comparable sign or whatever you're going to call it. So that is from a rehab standpoint, it's just adding keys to the key ring, but also when you understand why those exercises work or positions work, it helps understand other things.
Right.
From a training and fitness standpoint, is very linear. I am studying significantly on understanding the body's immune system's response to strenuous exercise. So that's a very linear thing, because the question I always ask my buddies that live in that world is like, how do you eat for T cells? Because cytotoxic T cells are the primary immune system response to exercise. And okay, well, if I want more T cells, yeah, I know I need to sleep, because that's when they get rebuilt, but they can't just be rebuilt from nothing. Like, what do I need to eat to make T cells? Right. That way I can give that advice, or I can tell you, go look here, so I don't get in trouble for being a nutrition person or something. It's So that's, but I think the biggest thing too is I like finding friends, colleagues, whatever the right word is, and engaging, even if I have to pay whatever it costs. I've done this where that person is either willing or no longer an instructor for commercial model X, because now you'll tell me the real thing. Because like if I teach for company X, I have to say within the boundaries, because this isn't about me teaching you victory. This is about promoting this commercial product. That's like the right way to do it. And but I would really like to, I like connecting with people that either don't work there anymore. I'm like, dude, it's just gonna, I'm not even gonna tell you, I'm not, no social media. You pay me, what's your hourly rate? I'll be there at this time, and you spill the, and show me everything, and go off the reservation, and then show me how, this is attached to that. Because when you're teaching the commercial model, you're not going to tell me that something over here is important, even though of course it's important. So that's another way where it's not the courses. I don't care about getting certified or anything like that. That's where, and those courses don't exist. It's like, hey, just show up, tell me what you want, I'm good. Nobody wants to go to that course. So,
Right.
well, what are you going to talk about? I don't know yet. You'll tell me what I'm going to talk about. Tell me what your problems are, and I'll tell you how I might create a solution.
Yes, I love that. I love doing these podcasts and putting these things up on YouTube, because it's like selfishly I get to learn from somebody who's an expert in their field. I had Peter Twist on not too long ago, and Peter Twist is just dear to my heart, because when I was a very young new grad trying to take all these personal training courses, like Peter Twist's like Accelerate program was one of my favorite things that I learned. I was the only female in the group. I had a whole bunch of these alpha males in there, who were talking about lifting, and his was all about balance. And you train, his big thing there was, we train the movement, not the muscle. And that always just stuck in my head, was, I think because I had that background at the college in Canada, was we trained for the movement, not necessarily this small little muscle. And it was a very global approach. And now, and I'll kind of go back to it in a second, but we had John Sharkey at one of the FSM conferences a while ago, and he's based out of Ireland, but he's doing a ton of fascial research right now. He's an clinical anatomist, so he does this really cool dissection course in Europe, and I think he has it again in Ohio. Sometimes in August they have it. But anyways, when he's talking about fascia, this was stuff that when I did my cadaver labs, we just like snipped it away to get at the muscle. So I'm, really interested in fascia, like you were saying, the component. When we had Peter on a while ago, he made this, he kind of just spit it out there, and we had all his people with this feedback, because he was talking about how, fascia is innervated, and, nerve muscle connection travels, what is it, 175 miles per hour, but fascia has the ability to travel at over 700 miles per hour. That's significant. So are you doing anything right now with that kind of concept, that fascia is innervated, and using it in a strength environment, not just mobility?
No, so when we're training for fitness goals, outside of the realities of everything you're saying, I don't think of fascia to do that. Now, maybe I don't think of fascia, I think of connective tissue, where you can get strong for the contractile element, or you can get strong for the connective elements. Right. So that may be fascia, but no, I think mostly of fascia. And then from a rehab standpoint, it's really like if model X says it's affecting the fascia, then if it works, it works. Like, it's not, because like, for instance, from a manual therapy standpoint, I think it's absurd to think that manual therapy can affect fascia, but then doesn't affect other things. That's silly. That's just unfortunate. Right. But a lot of people say that, which is, they can say whatever they want. But if I'm putting my thumb here, like, that's your skin, there's the dermis, then there's like, it's wild. So, but from the exercise piece, if the rationale is that you're yanking the fascia this way, and then everywhere else in the body is slacked, and then you see a dramatic result, I'm more interested in the dramatic result. You tell me why you think it happened, and then I'll take it from there. Show me how to do it. Tell me why you think it happened, and I'm good. And then the rest of the time, I'm on my phone.
I normally end every podcast I do with Carol with a quote. Do you have a favorite quote that you like? If you don't have one, I'm going to quote you. So
No, I mean, I don't, in what context? I don't know. I have a lot of quotes.
I know. I'm gonna quote you for a second because I actually quoted this on a podcast months ago. I don't even know how I saw it. It must have been on your Instagram. I went off of Twitter because I almost had an aneurysm a while ago. But so to quote you, we do not have body systems. We have a body. Everything is connected. Physiological body systems are all interconnected. And even the slightest lack of integrity in any one joint can affect the nervous system at rest and the musculoskeletal system during movement. It all matters all the time, whether we feel it or not. Charlie, that's like profound. I want to put that on the clinic wall because
Okay, you
I
can
know
do that.
you have this way of just kind of like spewing stuff, but that, again, there's so much to unpack in that statement. But I think if more people thought along those lines, we would be in a completely different place as far as healthcare.
If I kick you in your shin, I'm pretty sure you're not going to be able to press as much over your head. Like it's you know, there's a lot of models that statement was probably, you know, I'm always, oh, you're always cryptic, and then like 6 people actually know what I'm talking about. You know, because look, you can measure electrical signatures of lots of systems in the body, and just because one's over or underworking doesn't mean it's pathological. It just means your body's compensating for something. Find the something, and that's so that's
Right.
a good one.
Charlie, thank you for coming today.
Yes,
If people want to find more about you, they can go to your website, charlieweingroff.com.
yep, yep.
You're everywhere.
Yeah, Instagram is Charlie Weingroff. Website's charlieweingroff.com. Twitter, cwagon75. But everything is through the website.
Perfect. I want you to stick around for a second, but I'm going to stop recording because we're going to talk about some better stuff.
Cool.
So thanks for coming, and
Yes, bye, everybody.
bye.